Good evening and welcome to the Social Newsroom, a conversation, the first for this year that we're having live. And this is a conversation that, with what's going on, it's about time that we had it. Ending the silence, a conversation on femicide. And we know since the beginning of the year, the cases of the brutal murders of women that we have heard week on week. And some of these, like a scene from a horror movie, what we're hearing, bodies being found in Airbnbs and what have you. And we just want to talk about this in the context of what is happening, but with some historical and context and background, because it has been happening, just probably not been reported on as much as it has in the last few couple of weeks. So let me introduce you to my panel. My name is Mark Masai. Apologies for the bad manners for not introducing myself. But welcome to the conversation. It's live and you can have your view as well on the comment section here on our YouTube live stream. Thank you for joining us. Now, I'll start with Jeri Mwigwi. She is a founder of Usikimye. She terms herself as a human rights activist, not a gender-based violence activist, but human rights activist who runs an organization that helps those who have been victims of gender-based violence. She'll tell us about that. That's founder of Usikimye, Do Not Be Silent. Danish Odongo, next to her, is a founder, the Wellness Tribe, as well as a friend in the profession, a journalist who I've known for quite some time. Asante sana for joining us. And we have Ivy Namu. She's no stranger, especially on the interwebs and on this topic in the last few days. She's a content creator and executive producer as well. And we appreciate your presence here on this conversation. Kate Rira, a former colleague at the Nation Media Group, and a lawyer by training, and also one who speaks to such conversations, let's say media personality in two words. Thank you all for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll go first of all with what has been on the Africa Data Hub. This I saw from our colleague, John Allen Namu, who spoke to you as he was putting these figures together. And it's not just figures, this is human lives that are behind the numbers. And making reference to this, you can find it on Africa Uncensored online, that is femicide. And they describe it as, femicide is a killing of women and girls with gender-related motivations and is the most extreme form of gender violence on women. So Jerry is already nodding yes to this. Are we in agreement on this definition? Because we need to understand why this conversation at this time, femicide, especially in a Kenyan context.
Yes, that definition is very accurate. I would also go further and add the intentional killing. It's not just killing, but the intentional killing of women due to their gender.
Okay.
Yes.
Danish, from the Wellness Tribe, and you have a somewhat not different way of looking at this, but you'd want to have a 360 context to the definition.
No, actually, that's a UNODC definition, and they'd actually done a tremendous a lot of work to come to that definition, which is actually quite accurate.
Yes.
Yes.
But earlier, you did say in the definition, we understand what we are dealing with and how to approach it.
Exactly.
So in the context of what has been happening in the last couple of weeks, we have Starlet Wahu, we have Mweni, and these are all young girls who've been found in Airbnbs and, you know, brutally mutilated and killed. And this is why we're talking about it. It's gripped the attention of the nation because it's on the headlines.
Yeah.
Much as you will tell us, Jerry, these things happen on a daily, but on the headlines. So when we describe this as femicide and what the incidences that are being reported, is it accurate? And are we dealing with the same thing here?
It is accurate, and perhaps when we move forward, we're going to look at the threshold of what's sort of like a homicide or a murder of women that ought to be called a femicide, and perhaps I think we can learn, because the office that defined that actually gives an entire threshold of what constitutes a femicide or not.
Right.
Yes.
And is there any use in looking at this? I'll start with you, Kate, because you have the legal background as well of it in a Kenyan context. Or femicide is femicide because it involves human life.
I think when we're having the conversations about, human rights, we will call it femicide. But under the law, you can only be charged as homicide. See, that's the thing. The charge sheets will not, have different charges for killing a female versus a male. The charges in sentencing is the same.
Yes.
it is femicide, but according to the law, when we're writing the charge sheet, when we're checking the penal code, we will state it like you killed a human being.
Yes. And in and of itself, that's accurate, and
It's okay.
no change
It's
for
okay.
that in how we deal with it.
Yes.
To you, Ivy, as a content creator, you're very keen on how these things manifest online and what kind of messaging it pushes in terms of what the women are faced with. And it's for those, like you've phrased it over the week, and you've said, being a woman shouldn't be a death sentence. Explain that when you say that in this context of femicide.
I think it's just, for me personally, it's because we have been raised, we've grown up hearing all these things.
Yeah.
Women need to be safe, you need to be afraid of men, you need to be sure not to offend them, don't be too loud, all these things. Now I'm an adult, I'm a mother as well, and I'm being told the same things for an existing problem.
Yes.
Meaning femicide is accurate because it's unique to women.
Okay. So let's contextualize it to Kenya, given again the data that the Africa Data Hub has put together, and you were part of this in putting this together because you work very closely with people who have faced gender-based violence. And they've tracked some of the cases from 2016 to date. Mm-hmm. And it is said that a majority of these cases are from people that are known to the victim, yes. A, and it is mostly an intimate partner and at the home setting. Yes. As you speak about your experience from Usikimye, expound a bit further on where these cases are manifested mostly, because we're talking about this, it's been on the news, but you deal with it on a daily. Mm-hmm. Yes, so tell us about how bad it is, or this true picture on the ground.
First of all, as an organization, we have handled cases of femicide ourselves.
Yes.
And the fact that truly these numbers are horrifying, if you think about it. And the fact that Kenyans are only focused on the 2 women who were killed in Airbnbs breaks my heart, because they were 2 out of 10, right? Mm-hmm. And so the other 8 women remained unseen, because we focus on the sensationalization of cases, right. Whereas most femicide cases, I would go up to 80% to 90%, are actually based on people you know, people you have a sound relationship with, most of them being husbands, boyfriends, and so on. Very intimate. Actually, I would put it, your intimate partner.
Yes.
Most femicide cases are based on intimate partner violence. Okay. And that is why we look at femicide as the last stage of gender-based violence, because it's very intimate, it's very personal, and that is the person that is going to kill you. Now, let me give you some solid examples, which I have handled. I will not talk about cases that are just on the news. I'll talk about the 5 cases we handled last year. We had Mary Wamboi. She was 10 years in Kayole, class 4 student. She was called by 2 neighbors, men, and told her, come to the house, I'm going to send you to the shop. They raped her, and they killed her, and they stuffed her body under the bed. The only reason this body was found was because, as usual in these houses, we leave our shoes outside the house. So the mom was wondering, I've not seen this girl since lunchtime. It's now around 5, where's my daughter? So she went around looking. So as she was passing, because you know how plots are, yes. Because that's near the sink, she sees her daughter's shoes, and she's like, why are my daughter's shoes here? Mm-hmm. And so she tries to open, the door is locked. So she came to us, we went to call the police. Because I was, you know the way you have water in your stomach and you don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. And we went in, and we found her body. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that is femicide. That's a baby.
This is last year.
This is last year. Mary Mara, 3 years of age, also killed, raped, killed. Her body dumped in Soweto near the river. Also our case. Yeah.
And these are cases, not to cut you short, just give you an opportunity to catch your breath, that, as I hear it, it's heartbreaking, but it wasn't really talked about as we are experiencing. We didn't
even have one news media that even came to see or to even talk about it.
Were the perpetrators
Arrested. The one for Mary Mora, yes. We
Okay.
found him. He was the local guy that delivers water.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Be-
the other ones?
yes.
Sorry. And the other ones, were they arrested or arraigned or charged, anything?
Let me tell you what hurts. And that's why for me, femicide is very personal. We know the two men. And because I work there, I do not want to be another victim and another number. But I will say this, we reported this case. And we've never had a day in court. Yet we brought these men to justice. They were arrested. One apparently escaped. And the other one was declared unfit to stand trial due to insanity. Because you see, their father is a landlord in many of those houses in Kayole.
So influential and managed to work this.
We've gone to court. We are in court.
Yeah.
We've never gotten a date of hearing. We've never gotten anything. Our case has been scuttled. I say this because it hurts, because I don't even know what to tell Mama Mary.
Yes.
I don't know what to tell Mama Wambui. I no longer know what to tell her. Because we go to court, we are told this is the court, we go there, we are never called. So we don't know. The case has been scattered. Anyway, both men are nowhere to be found. So which case do we have?
You do speak about the unfortunate case that we're discussing, what's happened in the Airbnbs because it's caught or grabbed the headlines. Do you feel bringing this to the attention of mainstream or whichever other media to be in the public fora in terms of discussion would then lead to action being taken?
That's why we're here. That's why we want to discuss this. That's why we are marching. Because we want to bring attention to a topic that no one wants to talk about. First of all, as Kenyans, we don't want to talk about gender-based violence, leave alone femicide, right? And as I said, all these 5 cases that we have handled, none of them have been on media.
Yeah.
Yet, I am already seeing people saying they're tired of us talking about femicide. They are tired of us bringing this into their attention. People feel like because they're bringing it into the media and into the spotlight, people are going to copycat. Yet none of these people are anywhere near any other.
Yes.
The thing is, we have a very insidious culture. You know, I call it misogynistic terrorism.
Yeah.
That is so entrenched in us that we do not even get a chance to grieve before we are already being told women are being killed because of money. My comments are in shambles. I have refused to attend to them.
Yeah.
Because every time I try to talk about femicide, and I refuse to argue my humanity with somebody who thinks that women should be killed because of their lack of morals. I refuse to negotiate.
You bring me to something, and Kate, you'll respond to the issue about the courts, and because they're an institution, or at least a part of what we should expect to provide a solution, the courts and the legal side. But I'll have us all respond, first of all, to framing, because you've talked about how the attitude that is receiving some of these cases. And I'll just go by some of the instances of the headlines that were for these 2 last cases that have been in the headlines. And this is a star. Socialite Starlet Wahoo, 26, found brutally murdered in Airbnb. This is Capital FM, which had more or less shockers. Another woman murdered in Airbnb in Nairobi. The first line going by Socialite. A Citizen Digital, Socialite Starlet Wahoo found murdered in Nairobi Airbnb. Nation Africa, says this is HIV test kit, dead Socialite Starlet Wahoo found in South B Airbnb. That framing, first of all, I'll start with you, and we'll go to with whoever else. Ivy, when you hear such labeling of the stories, sometimes it's clickbait, and nothing is right by that. But what's your normal reaction to this?
It's very infuriating, dehumanizing. You just feel like you don't matter. Not only the victims, but as a woman. That's how it feels, because it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. Many of these things are not verified. They're assumed. It's an assumption because she was in the Airbnb. You go to her Instagram, she's looking pretty, in a socialite fits. Many of these women go through that. It doesn't matter whether you're one or not. When you die, the first thing is to sort of throw dirt on your name so that it's like, it's not that serious. It's one of them, one of the others. The sex workers are less than, the socialites, the slay queens, all those terms, all women have been called that at some point. It's to make it seem as if now whatever harm comes upon you after that, it was warranted.
Right.
You probably were looking for it.
From the mind of a content creator, sorry to cut in, but I want to get this point out, especially for people who don't understand the implication of what they post and put out there. It's discussed on WhatsApp groups. It's put out there as a meme or what have you. In fact, I saw, so very unfortunate for Starlet Wahoo, a day after, people picking her post earlier where she was, just making her comment about life and making it sound like, oh, you had it coming. Now look where you are. For people to understand how much they're contributing to these cases by posts. Just help us understand that from a context of a content creator.
I think it's because keyboard warriors, I think online, that's what they're called, they just get confidence via numbers. Once you, as a content creator or as a public figure, once one comment is negative in your posts,
That's it.
all the other ones come. Whether it's with their accounts, whether they make accounts to do this, one negative comment is all you need for the Pandora's box to open.
Yeah.
So you encourage each other, even if such people wouldn't say those things in person. I've never encountered someone come straight up to me and tell me, I think you're that. But online they can. It sort of, I think it detaches them from the consequences. It's because you can't see. But the effect is long-lasting.
Yeah. You speak about the consequences. I'll come to you, Danish. I know you're really eager to speak about the framing aspect. Kate, one almost feels, she's spoken about consequences. There needs to be some consequence for someone who's posting something, like this, almost saying you deserved what you got legally. But there's really nothing that you can hold anyone on from the posts that go online on such issues. That's
It's quite
at
crazy.
least from a layman's perspective.
It's quite crazy because even the digital law in Kenya is still being refined in the constitution, so that's a problem on its own. And then you see it's an opinion. You can't do anything to someone's opinion. They're warranted to it. Even opinion cannot be turned into a defamation suit, never. It's just an opinion.
Okay.
The thing is, for me, I won't lie, I spit back whatever you say. I'm not going to take anything lying down. Because some of these people who are very courageous online to speak the way they are speaking need to know that they're speaking to fellow humans. So sometimes I encourage a little bit of war, especially if you're fighting for human rights. Don't let anyone just insult you the way they want. Put people in their place 1 or 2 times. That people learn that it's not okay to do this. But there's something I want to highlight on, Mark, and because we've sat on a very, in journalism, and also you, Danish, I feel there's a lot of irresponsibility with what the media is doing, because the world is really sensationalizing death. Jeffrey Dahmer is a celebrity now, someone who murdered women and men and a lot of people. And we've really glamorized death. If you put out a series on Netflix about death and things of the kind, it will shoot in numbers. What do we call it? True crime comedies.
Yeah.
They do so well. And we really glamorize serial killing and things like that. And I think if Kenyans start consuming such content, we will see more deaths. That's why in America, serial killers are sensational. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
If we start doing it to ourselves, and remember, we consume what the media gives us. And the media have been reckless in this past few weeks. Posting out the photo of HIV test kits, that was actual evidence to be used by the police. I don't know why they were allowed to post it up as a story. Because they usually come after, later when we're doing an investigation or story or something like that. But that recklessness is what is teaching people to make it okay, using words like socialite instead of woman. Because it's really dehumanizing. It's those tones and connotations that dehumanizes this women.
Yes.
It's really, really wrong.
And I'll go with what you're just talking about here, because soon after, and now you can speak about this, and then Jerry, you can also talk about this in terms of the framing. there was another story where, and these are just headlines from what is posted online. This is Citizen TV Kenya. Man chops up 9-year-old nephew, gives wife remains to cook. Homa Bay woman killed, beheaded while cooking. Man stabs ex-wife and her boyfriend in Kiambu. As a journalist, since we can speak as journalists, when you see these headlines, does it read well or sit well by you?
It doesn't read well, but actually media is in the business of, we are really captured by commercial interest that when we don't get enough readership, many of us would be let go. So I also get a catch-22 situation that if the article is not interesting enough, and by interesting they want to do a clickbait sort of title, then they will not make their billing. And that's why there's need for more investment in public interest journalism. Would like the work that Journal Amnam is doing, KBC, ought to be financed properly so that they can contextualize stories. 1, 2. I wanted to add to what Njeri said. A friend of mine, when I posted this, the poster, she said, I've lost someone I know, killed by the baby daddy last week. It's not in the media. This tells us how so many cases go unreported.
Yes.
Then I asked her, oh yeah, then, but the police are on it? Said, yes, he's in hospital because he tried committing suicide, you know. So I think, for me, what breaks my heart is that we shouldn't be led by the media. It's not the media that should lead investigations, prosecutions, and putting away murderers. The police ought to be on top of their game because it's not just about apprehending the criminals. It must be about also protecting people. Why do we wait for crime to happen for us to have an outrage? We ought to invest more money in investigative and preventive measures because I think when somebody like the beautiful lady who died along TRM, I'm imagining the long-term damage that death has done to the family.
Yeah.
It's something that cannot be quantified. You know, look at her life. She'd have lived all the way up to her adult age. So everything is gone. So we shouldn't wait for that. That's one. But last but not least, I think the work that we need to do as journalists is to go back to our newsrooms because sometimes often these writers, people who write, could be people who don't understand framing. For example, I do a lot of mental health work. There was a certain doctor who died at Kenyatta National Hospital, and People Daily wrote an article. They mentioned her, the form of death, what she used to die, and everything,
Oh my God, I
and put all her face in the paper.
I remember.
But there's a World Health Organization guideline on reporting on suicide.
Yes.
So sometimes, Mark, you understand, and I've written extensively about this, that the structure of our newsroom is doing a lot of disservice to the art of storytelling. Because we're very quick, we want stories that are 300 words, especially on online stories. 300 words, the quick ones, you can grab a lot of that, and then you write. So we don't give time for our reporters to be taken through intensive training. Because if today you go to a media house and say, you'd like to train them on gender reporting.
Yeah.
So that then because when you see men responding and saying, why not men? Why we don't talk about women? It's because they don't understand that the reason why many women are being killed is because they are harmful gender norms which have permeated our thought and our patterns and our writing. Because even for you who's writing, like Scarlett Wahu is a socialite, you're already labeling her, and socialite already qualifies her, and perhaps you're taking away her humanity so that her death then can be normalized. So the work that we ought to do, and we already do this at the Wellness Tribe, part of work is to engage the Editors Guild and to look at how then do we, what is the nature of our language? Can we use languages that can make our world a bit better? Can we use languages that can humanize people?
Yeah.
There's this, and I'm going to call out Boniface Mwangi. Boniface Mwangi posted the video of a lady who passed on, a photo of a lady who passed on. And he posted the image and the face. So I'm wondering, Boniface Mwangi, he's a human rights defender, has won award for photojournalism globally. And there's this media ethics of just blurring the face so that you give people dignity. Somebody tagged me, somebody who had posted this thing, and I called them out. Then they said, oh, but you called me out, and a leading human rights defender posted it, you know. So I'm wondering whether it's the like for clicks or trending or the momentary fun of that my story is trending that is making us forget that at the end of the day we are human beings and our humanity is more important than the clicks.
The shock effect to get a response?
Which is terrible because when you get shock effect, you got 10,000 views. What else? How does that make you feel when you've dehumanized people in their very last vulnerable moment? Of course, somebody said that we put presidents when they're dead and we put them in. But that is a power thing. It's not anything to do with, but this is somebody who has been either killed by an intimate partner, somebody whose body has been mutilated by somebody they love. They did not, it wasn't death by, it wasn't like their final day on earth.
Yeah.
It was taken from them violently.
Gotcha.
You gotta humanize these people and cover their faces. It's basic decency.
Can I jump in on something? I want us to understand one thing, that there's a big role the world is doing to desensitize human beings. So every time you click on a negative story, is there a dopamine you get? There's something that is very intentional. When we look at Scandinavian countries, the ones that apparently have very low crime rate, they write that. I don't know, I've never been. But if it is true, we can copy-paste how they're running their media. Because training is good and all, but if we're training to keep a very triggered generation, this is a very triggered generation. Because every time you see bad things, bad things, bad things, you know what happens to someone in their mind when they're constantly seeing bad things? And because they realize that every time people consume bad news, they click on it more, they want to read more, they make it usual. So I think other than the training, it is essential for the leaders of our country to decide what kind of people do they want.
Yeah.
Do they want a triggered generation, people who are always on edge, or people who are calm, collected, and can veer from crime and just work for the country to be better? But instead, they want us triggered. They want us to have mental health issues so that we're in hospitals and we're taking medicines. So it is all construed to make the human a consumer one more time.
Now, when you call out the leaders of this country, they are the ones. They are part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because this is not something they want to tackle. Because it takes away from us looking at the fact that they are not working. So why would they want us to be calm and collected when calm and collected people are able to actually focus and see we are not working? And also they are part of the perpetrators, to be honest. They perpetrate the cause. Some of them are known, they're out here, they're murderers. So why would they? Did you see how long the government took to respond to these cases? How long was it? And who responded? And why? When we lose 10 women in 10 days, that's a pandemic. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And when the government of the day does not address that, immediately offering solidarity with the family and telling them, look, this is not business as usual, then of course the rest of the triggered population is going to jump in because there is an attitude of laissez-faire. We don't care. And if the government doesn't care, why should the populace care?
And I'm sure you've experienced this, Njeri. However, when you see a politician perhaps even join the march that you will talk about later, that's going to happen on Saturday, they normally do it for their own benefit.
Absolutely.
To shine, to be seen, to be doing something, and they jump in on the bandwagon and just want to be part of it. There's someone who's speaking to this, and I would like us and have you speak to the issue of the responsibility to media, because you understand the full ecosystem of who is involved, especially when you have a first respondent, let's say, to a case and an issue of gender-based violence. Who do you reach out to? And you reach out to the cops directly. And much as, yes, there are cases where we can say they should up their game, I know you can also give them some kudos in terms of how they respond, based on your work with them. In fact, wakona jina wamekupea. Unaitwa?
Njeri wa GBV.
So Rubia Abur, who is watching and following online, she writes, the way the cases are reported also contributes to a culture that enables femicide. I'm really surprised that even our mainstream media would report like that. The media is emboldening the murderers, and they need to be held accountable. As you help a journalist or the media or people holding this conversation understand the effect of how they talk about it and put it out in the public space, help us understand, for someone who's been through this case, incident, what it does to them to see the way they're reported on.
First, as somebody who responds, because we get called sometimes in the middle of the night. Your first responsibility and your first duty is not to take photographs and send them to media or send them to your WhatsApp groups or send them to God knows what, or even send them to me. Please don't send me those pictures. Yeah. I'm begging you in the name of God, please. My mental health here is at stake also. Your first duty as a person who has seen something is to report it to the police. Actually, you can call us, yes, but also report to the police. And now, the duty of the media is not to sensationalize. You know, it's not to sensationalize. What was the need for you to put socialite? What was wrong with just saying, Starlet Wahu has been brutally murdered in South B? At what point did you even know the house was an Airbnb? That was fast. All right? One. So when you frame it like that, you've already dehumanized us. Because Kenya, the minute I see socialite, and Kenya, we are a country that proselytizes and moralizes. You know, the only thing that hurt Kenyans is when children are involved. Sometime. It also depends the age of the children. When I tell people, oh my God, a 3-year-old, and people are like, oh, yeah. But when I say a 10-year-old, we've normalized it. When I say a 10-year-old has been raped, it's not as bad as when a 3-year-old has. Do you know the kind of country we have when we are so hell-bent on calling girls immoral? When we have people, November 2023, 2-month-old died because she was raped and killed. All right? But this is a country that now wants to call out Starlet Wahu. And I refuse to say Rita Waini, because Rita Waini was a university student. We have no idea why she was there. So I refuse to put her death and even say socialite or even say sex work. I do not know why she was there, because her parents and her people say she was literally kidnapped. So I have a problem here. But we ran so fast because we wanted to make her death align with the death of Starlet Wahu. You see, that is where I have a problem. We were so fast in calling out her death. Yet this girl, I don't know whether you have seen a death that is so hounding and so hurting and so... I mourn for Rita Waini because Rita should be here. So should Starlet. But can you imagine being this... Yeah, so we need to do better as a nation, as people. And the fact that I can't even write about Rita without people coming into my comments to dehumanize her humanity, right? And you have to negotiate with trolls who, as Kate has said, have the right to their opinion. No, we have to do better. And as a fast responder, and as somebody who posts a lot on my social media, on the organizational social media, we'll see these cases. Then we don't delve into a lot of issues, because that is how the case gets away. Because now, like the case of Starlet, what does the prosecution have? They gave everything away to the defense.
Exactly.
Yeah, everything. From how the case was handled by the media, from all the evidence that is out there, the case is already lost even before it started. So we need to do better. What is this idea that you want to be the first to report, the first to have this case out, the first to be out there, to be seen, that you forget that the person who is there needs justice. The person who is dead needs to be seen as a human being. Also, I'm going to talk to Kenyans. We need you to come back to decency. This morality you keep on preaching, you are not moral yourself. There is no morality in coming to say, oh, those girls are doing it for money. No. Not when you're raping children.
But even just to add to, it doesn't, I mean, that somebody is a sex worker in the street of Nairobi does not warrant for their death.
Absolutely not.
There's not a single day we can normalize the death of a woman despite the nature of our work. Because choices that women make in this country, most women make these choices because of deprivation. It is social, economic, and political barriers that make their choices to be so limited that eventually some of them end up in spaces that continue to dehumanize them. So the enemy here are not these people. The enemy here is a system that continuously put barriers. And of course, I was raised in an environment like that, where you find my mother would come back home. I write in my book, my mother would come back home at 1 a.m. coming from 4 kilometers from a rice field to look for rice to come and feed us. We were eating rice with rice husk at, say, 2 a.m. If somebody would have, God forbid, murdered my mother along the way, what would they have framed her? What were you doing at night? But they're not seeing how the deprivation and the barriers that have been erected along her way have given her very limited choices, which are those ones. So it doesn't matter. So there's never any justification of killing anybody, especially a woman, because of the nature of our work.
And Ivy, I want to get back to the point of personal responsibility, because she said, I want to talk to Kenyans on the issue of morals. There's no one who has a moral standing to speak against someone else's actions or lifestyle to even justify anything that happens to them. So help us appreciate what someone's responsibility is online. I have my phone. I'll pass on, hey, umone picha. Even though alifanyo, pass it on to the WhatsApp group, to someone else, and even find some way of joking about it. You know, now Airbnb is, you know, a joke in terms of when we talk about it, and what now the regulations that are coming up. What's the personal responsibility?
Just as Njeri had said, we just have to do better. There's a time I was talking about online GBV. It's not recognized because people are, you know, entitled to their opinions.
What is that?
Online gender-based violence, where, again, women posting about anything to do with womanhood, our struggles, we are villainized immediately, almost immediately. Most of these apps have protections. You can block people, you can mute people, you can restrict people, you can switch off your comments to restrict the people who comment to the people you only follow. Those things help. But people need to stop looking at the internet like some space, like some you know, out of the world experience. It's right here.
Yeah.
These are real people who are being posted about. These are real people who are speaking. These are real people who you're trying to, you know, get a few clicks off of their, you know, misfortune.
Yeah.
They're real people. We need to humanize each other. The excuse, like Kate has said, the digital law is still being, you know, is still being processed, I guess.
And reformed.
Reformed and all those big words. Then we're like, time. How long have we had to deal with the internet? Surely. There's a whole generation, it's generation Gen Z, who have grown with internet only. What are we teaching them? People forget, of course, Jerry has said that, you know, people tend to be more sensitive when kids are involved. Our children are online. Yeah. You can keep phones away for as long as you try, but whether you do or not, kids are on the internet. Yeah. You have to understand that at some point, your children will have access to your account. They'll be able to Google you and see what you are saying. You know, and for them, they're actually well conversant. It's not like us who've had to learn with the wave. They learn these things very young.
I think from the womb at this point.
Yes, in the womb.
Yeah.
So at some point, they'll be able to crack the code, whether it's your pseudo account or what. They'll be able to find you. Your child will be able to see all these things. Your child will be put up against people who are children whose parents think this is okay. Is that the kind of society we want to build? So let's just be responsible online. Just because nobody can see you doesn't mean it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong, whether we know it's you or not.
Okay.
Just be a better human being to other people.
And to the conversation of the framing within media, we did invite the Media Council of Kenya. They were not able to join us, being the regulator and prefect in terms of how newsrooms run their affairs. It is necessary to have them in the conversation. Hopefully they'll make themselves pronounced on this issue of the framing. But then there's the narratives in a society. And we don't want to trivialize or make it such a simplistic thing of women are facing gender-based violence, so it's the men's fault. So making it us against them kind of, you know, scenario. In finding the problem or who is behind the problem, again, it's our responsibility as we talk about it and as we approach the problem that we are careful not to say it's the men that have an issue. What's your take on that particular aspect of the narratives that are being bandied about?
There was a time where people would only get information from TVs or just radio.
Yeah.
It doesn't go further than that. But then the internet opened up. We're on Web3 now.
Yeah.
So everyone has a podcast. Everyone has an opportunity to say something. With that came, of course, the feminist agenda. It was really pushed because when we were growing up, it was girl child, girl child. So remember that has done something to the boy child because they feel, you know, put away. And then they grow up and then we're all having all this podcast, preaching something called the manosphere. The manosphere right now pushes an agenda that is against the femicide, the feminist, sorry. We have the likes of Andrew Tate, Kenya's our own Andrew Kibe, Americ's. They fit the manosphere. So in that we have a society of young men who are constantly listening to angry men telling them how to hate women, how women are less. That if you're ever gentle to a woman, you are not man enough. So hearing such a conversation for such a long time, when you're growing a man, a young boy is a young man. He will grow up to hate women. So that's where we are. That's how we landed where we are. That's exactly how we landed. We have had such a lot of conversations of pitting genders against one another. Because when we were pushing the feminist agenda, it wasn't to put down the male at all. Because we are the same people who give birth to these males. They don't come from anywhere else. So there's no way the feminist agenda was aimed at putting the men as enemies. So that's what we are living in right now is a result of what has been happening for the past 30 plus years, or even 40. We're living we're harvesting the seeds that we planted many years ago.
Okay.
We're having so many boys unaware that a woman is as equal as a girl. Let me give you an example. Yeah. I was in tuition when I was 14, 15, Deliverance, KPCU, kule chini, Tao. And I remember that's the time when we were growing up, the story about HIV and AIDS and rape was coming out. It was very prevalent at that time. And I remember one day the teacher decided, let's have a debate. And tell me, is it when a girl dresses badly, does it cause her to be raped if she dresses indecently? So there are proposers and opposers. It's a debate. The only grown-up in the room was the teacher. Remember, all of us are 14 and 15. All these are children. There was one boy who agreed that women, when they dress indecently, they will get raped. And in his words, I remember it till today, because now when I'm a grown-up, I'm like, wait, what did he say? And he said, Dema kipita mbele yetu, akosa kutusalimia lazima tumfunze adabu. And all of us, remember, take note, these are all 14 and 15-year-olds in a room. No one's a grown-up. All of us like, yo, don't say that, it's wrong. How can you say that? Instead of teaching him. But now as I grown up, I realized that boy was sitting around men who told him that that's okay. A 14-year-old couldn't think like that. Yeah. You know, that things are bizarre. You'd never expect a child to say something like that. But why would a child be comfortable to say something like that? Because a 14-year-old is a child. There are other children saying no, because we were raised, women's rights, we know, girls can dress whatever they want. But he thinks that when a girl doesn't say hi to him, she deserves to be punished. So there's a lot of conversations that have been surrounding men that are only going to put them in more trouble. Yeah. Because they have dehumanized women. And if you think this is a joke, in America, the manosphere effect is so prevalent that certain school teachers started to come out and say, young boys are not being respectful to their female teachers. That a female teacher will tell you to do your homework or do this, and they wouldn't do it, because why is a woman speaking to me? Yeah. So the effect of the manosphere is what we're living in right now. That when someone dies, we look at their occupation first, instead of, oh no, she died. That, oh, there are certain women, if they have a sexual inclination, that's immoral, so they're deserving of death. Because the manosphere conversation surrounds that. Yeah. So we're literally living in a world where, unless we start changing the conversation, we're going to have a very dangerous relationship between men and women. And we've become enemies of each other instead of friends.
Yeah. Let me tell you, in one of the comments, it wasn't even a comment, it was a whole tweet in itself, and somebody said, the only femicide we will celebrate is on Jerry Megwe if she dies.
No.
And I have been sitting on it and thinking, what did that man mean when he said that? And I will take up with what you've said. The feminist conversation was about bringing girls to an equal place with men. It's actually about gender equity. It's never been about women taking from men or taking over. It's never been. I do not know how that conversation became a gender war. Yeah. The conversation about women is we are trying to get equity for girls, which we haven't even gotten. Women, when they were fighting, were fighting for women to have bank accounts. They were fighting for women to own land. They were fighting for women to even have identity cards, to be able to vote. Yeah. Now, we are able to do all those things, but we can't even own anything. Part of the reason gender-based violence is so prevalent and why we, as Usikimi, run safe houses is that women can't go back home. Why? The issue of inheritance of land. I just want to know how bad and insidious all of these things work against us. So we fought, and women now can inherit land. Whose land are you going to inherit? You try go back home because your husband has chased you. I promise you, we had a woman. And I remember, we got her from the safe house, took her home. Only took her home as we came back. See, she had land. See, they had all inherited. So each one had inherited 2 acres, 2 acres. When her brothers saw her, they were like, oh, let her come home. Let me tell you, that night, they beat her worse than the husband that had made her put her in hospital. So morning when you're opening, guess who we are seeing? The lady, bleeding with her babies. She was beaten almost to death because she tried to go back home. Kenyan women own 1% of land in Kenya. But we keep on saying the girl child is empowered. But we can't even go back to that land that your father or your mother has left you to inherit. But out here on the interwebs, we are talking about the parity, the equal parity, the gender parity. There is no gender parity.
Right.
I will beat you senseless and I will kill you because you're a woman. That brings us back to the femicide conversation.
And Danish, I want you to read this so you can process it first, but follow up on a narrative that is also in society. Mambo ya watu wawili
hate that statement.
That's what you hear in neighborhoods.
I hate that statement.
Where in a neighborhood you'd hear they're fighting, and we've known from the statistics that most of these cases happen within the home, what people call home. What do you say to that narrative, and to help someone understand how they can help based on the cases that you've seen?
Let me say this. We have become so desensitized and so selfish. We don't care. By the time people like us are being called, it's bad. The one good thing about the internet, and leave alone the other bad things, is that because we keep on talking about these things, because we have insisted as Usikimia, we shall not be silent. And we don't talk about data, we humanize the data. That's the difference. We talk about these stories as people. We humanize the data because it's very important. We can talk about gender statistics, but we will not look at those people as individuals, we'll look at them as stats. Is we've been able to say this and this happened to this and this. So when people start seeing that, they're able to call us. But one of the things is, most people don't care. Again, watu wawili wamejifunikia, because there's a phenomenon of, we fought, you went back. You fought, you went back. Not realizing the underlying, and he's here, he can talk about, he's a wellness person, he can talk about the fact that there's a psychological reason why I come back. There are psychosocial reasons why I come back. There are social reasons why I come back. And so for us, we're like, I'm not involving myself in them because she will go back anyway. And we don't care. And we're like, especially even as friends, we know actually, what are the statistics that KNBS sent the other day in July? 1 in 3, so 1, 2, 3. 1 in 3 women, not 1 in 4. In Kenya, it's 1 in 3. 1, 2, 3. I can assure you one of us here has gone through gender-based violence. And even sitting here, I can even just point out to myself, even before we go to others. You see, 1 in 3. That's crazy. Every woman. And the worst part about this is that in Kenya, every woman can tell you at some point something gender-based happened to them. When my daughter, they were 11, 12, I have an adopted daughter, so they're very close in age, and my daughter. And they were kids, kids, literal, like, the baby fat is still there. And they're just walking, and these men are whistling and catcalling, and these kids ran. Because they're like, Mom, men are calling us. Why would they call us? We are babies. Because I've allowed them to be children as long as they should possibly be. Because we are not letting children be children either. Yeah. And I went out, because me and those mothers, I went out and I told those men, why would you catcall my children? They're like, ni wasichana, ni madem. And I was like, okay. Si wewe ni mama. Taki kawe, tunataka fine things, madenge. I was like, wait. Wow. I told them, these are kids. One is 10, one is 12. Why would you? There's nothing about them that is even womanly. And I keep asking women to just look at yourself and tell me when you stop being catcalled. Never stop. And how much are you catcalled when you're a younger child? vis-a-vis now when you're a woman. Because you start sexualizing children when they're small. And nobody sees that as a problem. They start to see how it is never a social problem. And so girls, as they grow up, their space is so violated. I remember the first time a man told me I have sexy eyes, and I was like, what the hell are sexy eyes? And because me, I was just stupid, I went and asked my dad. My dad said, nani huyo amesema twende? You know? And I was like, oh, so that's a bad thing. And I was in primary school. And yes, I was. And it was a neighbor. And he was grown. Like now when I think about him, he was an adult. Me, I was a child. Me, I didn't know. Me, I was in class 6 huko. He's like, uko na sexy eyes, come kwa cube yangu. And I was like, what? Me, I went home and I told my dad, hey, ni mambo niko na sexy eyes. My dad is like, huh? Nani huyo amesema twende? So I realized, oh, sexy eyes is a bad thing. So you start to understand. So women can tell you when they start being violated.
Yeah.
When there was a touch somewhere that was unwarranted, uncalled for, and sometimes it came from the house. The call is inside the house. It could be a cousin, and as somebody who does this work, sometimes when we even go to school and start talking to girls and we start saying, these are things, and then somebody tells you, but teacher, and I remember we got a father like that. In school, when we went to talk about sex, and we were talking about life skills and sexual health and reproductive rights, and this girl listened. And after the class, she called me and said, teacher, can I talk to you? You know that thing you told me about being touched like this? That's what my father has been doing. And I remember my heart just stopped, and I was like, God, no, this is not why I came here. And so I told her, you go home. Because now how do we arrest this man? There has to be evidence. I said, does he do this every day? She said, yes. It's a 14-year-old. I said, when did he start? When mom left and went back to Shago, since I was in class 2. Now she was in class 6. And so she went home and she came back to school. I said, tell your dad to. So she went, I told her, don't shower. Can you imagine this is a conversation you're having with a child? And she went home and he did it. She came to school. I was in school. I was waiting. And I told her, did your dad do this? She said, yes. And the man that walked in, unfortunately, was a clergy because he had a collar. And I think that is the day I just said, you know what, that's it, I'm done. But we did, with the help of the police and everything, we were able to arrest him. Yeah. And we in court. And the last, they even had, what is it called, judgment? Yeah, and he got 20 years because she was able to stand on her business. And actually, this is one of the children I have in our safe houses. So I'm talking about real life cases. I'm wondering how many people in that neighborhood knew and did nothing about it.
Yeah. Danish, you can respond to the whole narrative issue, and then I'll read out this particular comment that speaks to the framing of us against them. But first, the framing, is it about the problem is men, the problem is this and that?
Mark, I think I'd like to call out my brothers and my brothers, and of course my uncles and my fathers, that the most disposable body in the entire world is actually the body of a man. Out of 10 bodies that the police pick, 7 are men. Men die by suicide 3 times more than women. I don't know whether you know that. Homicides in 2021, over 2,000 of them were men. Women made about 800 thereabout. Men die every day. They die in war, they die in lodgings, they die everywhere. But the death of a man does not bring rage. Why? Because we are not organized. So we shouldn't clamp on women who are organized and say that, oh, by the way, because they are organized, we should not rain on their parade when they're... What we should actually do is to build solidarity and say, all right, you people have something going on really well here. From the charmers to when there's a femicide, the way you're organized. What we should do is actually to be learning from them. But you know why we can't learn from them? Because of their ego and harmful cultural practices and terrible gender norms, where within men there's also hierarchy. A man with money, a man without money, a man who's old, a man who's young, a man who's going through this rite of passage, a man who hasn't gone through this rite of passage. There's so many hierarchies amongst men that stops us from building solid solidarity. So that we don't overconnect that the boy that has been shot like Carlton Minor, a university student from abroad would just come back to Kibra, gunned down by the cops, EJE, extrajudicial execution. We're not connecting that the people who are hunting us are the armed police and a system that is deeply patriarchal, but also very capitalistic, because the male body is very disposable. But we're not seeing that this system is what produces enough violence that then we take back home. Let me give you an example. There are people here who are raised by fathers who went to the military, people who are raised by fathers who went to the police, people who went to fathers like Barack Obama writes in his book, Dream for My Father. His grandfather went to the war in Burma. So we're not seeing how this system is connected, and that violence that is meted on men eventually ends up, because whenever you're attacked or whenever you're disrespected, guess what? The person you're going to attack next is somebody who you deem as weaker. So we got to see this thing, and that's why the Wellness Tribe, part of the work that we do is to help men to deal with their own trauma, because the moment you deal with your own trauma, then your normal response will not be violent, because there are so many emotions. There's happiness, there's sadness, there's joy, So why do you only want to feel anger, which you want to release through violence? It means you can't, first of all, verbalize how you feel, so you have a problem with the emotional intelligence. You don't have the ability to hold on and say, by the way, let me go to the gym and work out. Maybe I might get out that stress outside. Also, you don't have healthy coping mechanisms, because maybe you don't have community where you can go and be yourself. What you know is alcohol. Because I've read that, I just want to respond to it.
I'll read it. Let me just ask on that point, on that question. You deal with usikimye, gender-based violence cases, and you help people who've been at the receiving end. Are there cases of men that you've dealt with? Is it there?
Yes. Yes.
Because that's the conversation, again, you hear. What about us? What about the men?
Actually, I like the way he framed it. He's given me a look-see into something, and that's why I say things for men should be done by men. So when you call out women, like if you go to my comments and you see how many men are asking, why don't you call out about men? When I will honestly say, especially when it comes to even extrajudicial killing, you remember Human Rights Defender? Yes. Guess who goes to demonstrate for our young men who've been killed? Tell me who goes to demonstrate for women, for young men when they get killed. When Mathare children, when Akina Carlton were killed, I was busy holding, walking around Nairobi like a mad woman, holding the names of those boys that
were. Or let me just add, the RPPP movement in 1992 released political prisoners.
It was done by women. You need to also understand that is a solid comment. I love that. Thank you. Because we need to I don't know, how do we bring down patriarchal norms that are holding men prisoners into their own, they're captive by their own patriarchy. Patriarchy is a system meant for men. And yet they are the same people who need to destroy that patriarchal system that is holding them captive, that they cannot even see the problem we have. Men come and report to me. They do, a few. And we help them. And the funniest thing is when we fundraise for men, we'll get better. People are so sympathetic because it's men. And you will see women are like, oh my God, he's a man, here's a mattress, I will get him a job. I don't see that kind of response. It's like women, being the weaker sex, we are supposed to take it all in. Yeah. The beautiful thing about women is we talk about it. Is we come together and, as friends, hey, by the jana nilichapwa, and we vent. Yeah. Men, and the problem I have, and the reason, unfortunately, we may all say these things, but the truth is, 99% of the perpetrators are men.
Can I help?
Yes, you can interject.
I think when we're asking for the reparations from the British colony, we should ask also for mental health, especially for men. Let me take you back. We celebrated 60 years, yeah? And I'll talk about Kikuyu men because I come from the tribe Kikuyu. Kikuyu men were put in concentration camps. A grown man beaten by another man. What that does to a man is so wrong. It tramples on his ego, his manhood, and his persona. So you beat this man in a concentration camp. You put him not with his wife, but with other men. So it's anger and beating. You send that man back home. That man becomes absent, drunk, and doesn't want anything to do with the family. This man has boys. The boys see their dad, and they think that's the way a man is. It continues. The boys give birth to us, because those are our fathers. So we have a lot of work to do. I pity men, because it's a little bit of their fault because they're not fixing themselves, but also the system did it for them because you beat a grown man. That is so degrading.
Can we not just say beat? Because I don't think it was just the beating.
Yeah.
The beating was the minimum they received.
Yeah.
It is the back breaking that killed what was a man, especially in central Kenya, because most of them came from there.
Yes.
And let me add that it was that eventually was then exported from central Kenya to different parts of the country.
Yes.
So you see it in the Wagala massacre where, you know, the Moi regime then goes and humiliates the men of a tribe in Somalia. We see it in Kisumu and the entire Nyanza region, name calling and starting to magnify cultural differences. We see it in Ukambani, Mukamba, you see, and we see it at the coast. So that violence that was meted around that area has spread and has defined our politics and our national psyche, and it spreads into the home.
And now it becomes culturally
It's become culturally
entrenched.
entrenched.
Because the truth is, African people were not this violent. We were not. We only fought wars to herd cows and things like that. We were not violent. That thing of hearing that people used to beat their wives, it's a lie. Africans were inherently not violent. So seeing this rise right now is like, I think we need to sit and rethink one more time. What are we solving? What are we solving fighting one another? If there's a pledge I would have right now online, stop the gender war. We are not enemies of men. We will never be.
You know, when people think I fight men, I laugh. I was raised. I am a child of a single father. In the 1980s, when did you see a single father? That was a phenomenon that was unknown. And everybody used to say, where is your handbag? I was the handbag for my dad. You know, things like that. And I was raised by my dad. And so I was raised looking at men differently. Shock on me when I grow up and I meet men and I find out, yeah, they are gender roles. You see, when you've been raised by a man, there are no gender roles. I was a child. I play. I come home, me expect food. Me, I don't know who cooks. It's my dad. So as I grow up, he just started telling me, you need to start washing dishes. I cook, you wash dishes. As I grew up in high school, he washes, we do equal. So now I am getting married to somebody who grew up with a mom and a dad. And the mom was the one in the kitchen. And so me, I start standing up for myself. And then he says, mini kichwa ngumu. So I got beaten. Because at the end of the day, I'm challenging something that I did not see growing. And so for people who don't understand that my feminism came from my dad. Because my dad never told me I couldn't be. He never said I couldn't climb trees. I used to climb trees with most of the boys. In fact, I was a tomboy. You know, I was just, sometimes I think I was a hoyden. I've been carried by ambulances as many times because I've broken my leg, I jumped somewhere. So you understand. So I never grew up in the traditional home. So I never had traditional norms that attached with themselves to me. It's until I grew up, then I'm like, no, I'm challenging things. So I have to say this. My dad's dad fought in, you know, my grandparents, we are from Nyeri. My dad at least that's why I can trace my roots, are from Nyeri. So they are Mau Mau. So my grandfather. Now the funny part is my grandfather was conscripted in the army by the British. My grandmother was a spy for Mau Mau. I do not know whether you understand how bad that is. How contradictory. And how when my grandfather came back here to marry another woman because my grandmother was fire. You know? And so I come from, from people who are fiery by nature and who stand to call out these things. And so even for men, as we look back and deal with our traumas, that's a man who came from that kind of, background. But he chose his child. He chose his child. You choose. We have to make choices about our children. We have to make choices about us. You have to make choices that are conscious enough. We have education.
Exactly.
Most of us are educated now. Kenya is one of the very educated nations we have, right? We have the same internet you're using to abuse women and to abuse the weaker people than you has information that can help you dismantle patriarchy. The patriarchy that is holding you so captive that you see women as a weaker vessel. And what do we do to weaker vessels anyway? Do we break them or should we protect them? We need to go back to that notion, and that notion is not a bad notion. And not just traditional roles, but human decency. Forget even about norms and cultural norms. What about just...
I wanted to say something about also when we have this conversation online, men will be like, I remember I was saying that, stop killing us, men, stop killing us. Has your father killed you? Have your brothers killed you? How are you here? It's like making it so trivial. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. Of course they did not. That's why I am here. Women, like I'm saying, we've been called all the names from when you're, when you start being told, please don't jump on your brother like that. At the end of the day, he's
a boy.
And you go home thinking, what does that mean? Because he's my brother, So I'm like, we have been called names. We know better than to internalize them. Right now, if you call me Malaya, socialite, slay queen, all those things, it doesn't do anything to me. That is not me. And even if it was, I would be proud of it. Okay? So when we're talking of these issues, if you're not the man who does these things, we are not talking to you. We are talking to the ones who think this way.
Yeah.
And then men listen to other men. So please stop asking us why we don't fight for you. First of all, that's not true. As Njeri has pointed out, we do. We do a lot. Personally, I also come from a house of brothers. I was the only girl. I fight for men all the time. Yeah. So we do. But men listen to other men. Me telling a man what I think and another man, thank you, Danish and Mark, for being here, they will listen to you more than they listen to us.
If I'm rich, if I have money, they listen.
Yes, and okay.
There's hierarchy of
even if there are hierarchies, if there are hierarchies to men, where do women fall in that hierarchy for them to listen to us?
We are not there. Even if we're educated, they don't care about your credentials.
In fact,
men
as you
listen to
mentioned
other men. So talk, speak up. We're saying the boy child has been left behind. By who? By men. Women, our mothers have raised us to be this type of women. Our mothers went through worse. They raised us to be strong. They raised us to speak up. They raised us to not take things lying down. They raised us to go for our dreams. Yeah. So the people when men say things like, our mothers would never leave marriages, our mothers did everything, they have told us that they did not have to. That is why we stand up for our rights now. They wanted better for us. They did it to give us a chance to have a better life and better opportunities. Yeah. So please, we're not going back to what our mothers did. We're growing, we're evolving. Women are evolving and we're pulling each other along. Are men doing the same? If the men who are talking, spreading this violence about women have platforms, where are the good men?
That's the thing.
The good men are quiet, not me. It's not me, not all men. Me, I'm not like that. What are you doing? When you see a young boy doing something to another girl, do you say, let boys be boys? Or will you correct that young man? You have to reach your hand back out. Yep. All this education is for nothing if you're not helping the young ones. The toxic men are talking. They have no...
They're louder.
They have their platforms.
They're making money. Where is the positive manosphere?
Yes.
Where is the positive manosphere?
Very little to none.
Where are the good men?
They exist.
They exist, but their voices are so low, you can't be heard.
Because if it doesn't bleed, definitely do not lead. So the manosphere that is toxic is likely to get more trending. But there's a friend of mine called Eric Mungai. Eric Mungai runs here as well. Africa's been running it for 10 years. Mentors young boys through positive masculinity, has done a lot of work. Transform Nations, led by Pastor Simon Baby, doing a lot of work. Even at the Wellness Tribe, we have a Manspective Academy. Yes.
Quickly, because you are in the media, and so are you, why don't you platform this man? But I see, I was called for a meeting, for an interview, and do you know who they platformed? And I left, because me, I'm not going to sit in the same space and talk to that man, Andrew Kibe. And I told them, no, I'm out. It's either me or him, choose. Yes. And before they even chose me, I was already at the door going, so they had to call me back. Because I told them, it's that simple. You're not platforming me with a known misogynist.
You see, what is the scariest thing is that I told you, the Kenyan man is really in trouble. He was raised by a man who was not there, a grandfather who was bitten by the British colonialist. So the man has felt not heard for so long. So he's angry already. Then you have this man on your screen constantly being angry. Wacha kusiba, weni fala. Do you know what that does to the spirit of a man? I don't know, I'm a girl, but I know for sure I have nephews that I would never want them to listen to such voices. The voices of men are very angry right now that if a man says hi to me right here and I say no, he will leave with an insult.
Yes.
It is guaranteed. Mrembo, and then you just walk, hey, you're just, I'll get a name, of course.
Or even get hit.
Yes.
Yeah. Violence. So these angry voices that you're allowing yourself to listen to again and again is this Matara who is allegedly able to stab girls and only get caught once. It's the angry voices that men are listening to again and again and again and again. That's why we're here where we are. Because girls will be careful as much as they want to be.
Yeah.
I won't lie. For every date I go to, a girl knows where I am, who he is, and his number plate.
And picture. You know the way you
Live
surreptitiously, when you are dating, hivi, unakuanga umepiga
location.
picha, live location, and you send it to your girls.
Can you imagine, you're in the endeavor of journey of life to look for love, but you're doing it afraid?
And again, I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
Andrew's Kibe, the Kibes, the Amarixes, their voices are heard. Why are they being heard? Why isn't
Why
the
are they
media
louder?
platforming? What did you call him? I've never even heard of him.
Rev Simon Devi.
No, Rev Simon Bevy, I know him.
It needs to be louder.
Eric.
We need
you
That is the
louder
content
to
men.
raise
that the media
these
should be
men.
doing.
When these conversations are happening, these men should have been platformed
Yes.
already.
I don't know if you would describe this man and his comment as one, because in the attempt to reach, collective voice for the man, he's called actually Dr. Tiankolu. He's a well-respected lawyer, advocate, and he says, men have died in lodgings, Airbnbs, and other pleasure dens for the longest time. No one gave the death a gender dimension. No one considered it a security matter. Instead, the world quickly concluded that the male victims died in the line of duty without considering homicide. You can start.
Yeah, Mark, let me try and make sense. When we talk about a gender lens, we're looking at a group of people who have been traditionally disadvantaged because of their gender.
Yeah.
Have men been traditionally disadvantaged because of their gender? No. We need to get that. In the hierarchy, it was the man who was on top, the woman came up. So because of this, the systems and structures have always facilitated men. What we need to do on that is not to say that this death should not evoke any anger or outrage. That should not be the discussion. Neither should we juxtapose that with the death of women. We should address them as the death of men in love dens and say, why are men dying in love dens? Without raising it.
Without countering.
Without countering. So for example, Mark, so assuming that we are dating, then she tells me that, but I'm not happy with what you once you did. Then you know what I say? But I'm also not happy because of what you did last time. So we go back and forth. So we need to, when she says that she's not happy with me, I need to listen and acknowledge. Then some other time, I can also raise my issue.
Yes.
So the issue of men constantly wanting to center themselves in the story of women is tired. And it's not tired, it's not tired, it's the language of the privilege. Let me give you an example. In the Black Lives Matter movement, what do they say? All lives matter. Whenever we were talking about politics in this country, no lives matter. Oh, it's not only them. Why are you on the street? Why are you on the
Why is
street?
it the Luos?
Why is it the Luos? Why not other community, So the oppressor or the person who's privileged will always center themselves in the stories of the minority.
Yes.
And it's tragic because it never helps anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want us to wrap this up in response to what Tiankolo had tweeted about men dying in lodgings and it not being, given a gender dimension. And then we will talk about who you think are the duty bearers for solution and a way forward in this issue of femicide. So you can respond to what Dr.
Mark, there's also a
Tiankolo.
question in the chat box. Perhaps
Yes.
you can check it out. Yeah.
All right. First you respond.
Mr. Tankuli.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get in and become a little rude because I would. And I'm not going to choose this because he's a respectable man. He's a learned friend.
Yes.
But it's quite unfortunate that even with so much education and information, people still choose not to have the right conversation because he's not having the right conversation. That's just it. That's my problem with him. He's not having the right conversation. It's not a competition of who dies more.
Yes.
We want to be alive. It's not, as we've died more, as we've not, no.
It's
no one
not
needs
the
to die.
oppression Olympics.
Yeah, it's not, we're not in the Olympics of who's oppressed more, who dies more. No, we're not. We're in the business of solving problems, not asking who has more problems than the other. We're all in these problems together.
Yeah.
When these girls are dying, who's building the nation? That's some taxes gone we didn't collect. That's a girl who would have worked for us. Those are women who would have changed. That's another child who would have been born from that family. Now that lineage has ended. Yeah. So when we're talking about who died more, it's really not helping anyone. It's not helping anyone. And I find it quite uninformed for people who are educated. I usually say every time you're educated, you're privileged.
Yeah.
You have a chance to use the internet to be emotionally intelligent and understand these gender issues. So anytime an educated person gives such an uneducated statement, it beats the logic.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay if someone who's uneducated tell me that. I get it. You're not even in the social forums that you could get on the internet and learn this. But for someone who is that informed,
It's a choice.
you're choosing just to want to start fight with women. Because we're not in the business. I said at the beginning, I said again. Feminism is nothing against men. We're not in a gender war with men. Men are our friends. We live with them. We have children with them. We give birth to them. So we're not enemies with men. We love men. Let that just be clear. We just don't want them to kill us. That's it. It's a simple request.
Ivy, in response to that comment, which comes up a lot in different forms, in different
I'll just
ways.
tell him that he's very smart. Two things, many things can be true at the same time. If that's how the media handled the reporting of those deaths, it's, again, we had the conversation on the media's responsibility, so that's not our problem as people speaking up against femicide. It's not a competition. You have a point, you're just not saying it in the right time, right place, right way. So two things can be true at the same time. That can be true, and that women are facing a lot of violence from men, and it's being sensationalized and normalized, and that is why we're standing up against it.
All right. And please think about the duty bearers in your view who can take urgent action to come to a solution. It's not an overnight thing, but something that can be done immediately. And someone is asking, as you respond to what Tiankolu has said about the angle, about the twist that comes with religion. This is Jacqueline Batenge. She came in late in the conversation. Have you talked about the twist that comes with religion?
Let me first address that gentleman before I go to, and I'll call him gentleman loosely. He has just done whataboutism.
Whataboutism.
And he has done it in a very learned way, in a very smart way. But what he's asked is, what about men? In a conversation about women, you just came and asked, what about men? That is what men do. They bring a conversation that has nothing to do with them. This is the issue at hand. If we're talking about the army, why would you come and say, what about police?
We do the army.
So today we are talking about femicide. We are talking about women being killed intentionally because of what has happened to them, because of them being women. And you bring into this conversation, what about men? As Ivy said, and as Kate said, this is not the place, not the time. This time, we are dealing with women who are being killed. When men are being killed, do you know who are the most people who go there to sympathize with them? Again, it's women. Women are made to bear the burden for being women and then bear burden for carrying men.
Yes.
Because men simply refuse to carry the burden themselves. We are there. I am in Missing Voices. I am in Missing Men. Extrajudicial killing for men. I am the person who is always going to the police call because I work in the, in the low-income areas where men, forget even about the men in the lodgings. Those ones can afford lodgings. Let's talk about the young men in the ghettos who get killed by police.
Just because they're men.
Just because they're men. Do you know who mobilize women to go there to the police? Do you know how many times I've been arrested because I've gone to fight for men?
To cry for their sons.
To cry for their sons. Not men, women. So we need men to let us, when we're having conversations about women, to not center themselves in this conversation.
All right. To Jacqueline Batenge, I came in late. Have you talked about the twist that comes with religion? And I'll direct that to you.
I will go back to something I like saying. 1 in 3 women. 1 in 3 women. Which means in religious spaces, who are the most people that attend religious spaces?
Women.
Women. So in your religious spaces, how many women are going through gender-based violence? 1 in 3. Do those religions give space to speak about GBV? I need churches and mosques and whatever else organized religion to start speaking about these issues. I have not seen a comment from religion.
Oh my God, by the way.
I have not seen I look out for these things. I am very careful. This is why I don't mess around with churches. I don't mess around with religion, and I don't mess around with politicians. Because for me nowadays, I feel they're the two sides of the same coin. You platform politicians in your churches, but you don't platform the issues. Churches are supposed to be a social issues, bringing consciousness to social issues. Yeah. GBV is a problem in this country. Gender-based violence is a problem. And if one in every, that means a third of your congregation is going through gender-based violence. But as a church, what are you doing? What are you speaking about? When you say you are nourishing your flock, what are you nourishing them with? What are you giving them to go back home? Are you telling them, ndoa ni kuvumilia? Tunavumilia hadi tunakufa. You know, we are vumiliaring until we are dying. When you go even to, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. When you go to our Muslim friends, they even have maslaha, where they solve these things because of kujistiri. They know what I'm talking about. Because we are hiding each other's nakedness. Yes. So we solve them at that space, so nobody ever knows that these things happen. Now we have a problem because we are hiding behind religion. Because if there is something, if the Kenyans who are in church on Sundays, how can we be the same Kenyans who are killing each other? Because which Kenyans are in churches, are in mosques, are in temples, are in God knows where, and then we have 1 in 3 women. Can we just like sit back and think about it? So for me, I feel like religion is about proselytizing, is about it's about hypocrisy. Because how can we serve a God who is love?
And just.
And then we do not show the same love and the same humanity to our people. Right. So for me, peace out.
I also have an issue with how they deal with sex education. Anytime it comes along, because again, sex education, life skills, these classes throughout our childhood, like you said, we grew up in the time for HIV and sensitization. Yeah. We were sensitized. We were sensitized. You were scared. Fear. You knew why you needed a condom. Even if you didn't know how that thing worked, you knew
that you had to have a condom.
The first thing you would do
the impact is HIV.
Yes. So they sensitized us. I even remember people showing commercials from those days. Yeah. They were pretty straightforward. Nowadays, something like that, sorry to mention him, but Mr. Ezekiel, that's not morally upright. It can't be that. How will the kids know? How will we teach these people? Sex education is so important. As you've said, it's how many people recognize that what they're going through is not normal, is not right. It is a violation against them and their bodies.
I feel like, because you've said that, this is not a point I wanted to say, but I feel like because most pedophiles, most wife beaters, most sex pests are in the church. The church work is to cover them. And that is why they have a very big problem with children learning about sexual education, because then they will be able to see. Right. Because why would you have a problem with me learning about my parts and I shouldn't be touched and so on? Yes. Because I don't know why they hear sex education and they think pornography. Because where is the correlation? So what is it that you don't want the children to know? Because immediately, like I was giving an example, that child learned. Yeah. What did she do? She recognized. Yes. And immediately she was able to say, my dad, who unfortunately was clergy. Yeah. Do you start to see a problem here? So we are covering up. We need to stop.
But Mark, it will be incomplete if I don't say this, that I'm a Christian, and the Christian faith has played a very fundamental role in shaping my worldview. And one of the things that I love about Jesus, I see that in the social justice work he does, that he broke the patriarchal barriers. He stood with people who were deemed unfit. Spartan woman, the lady who came and broke the alabaster jar at his feet. Even when he died, the people who came and anointed his body were women. Jesus was an advocate for women, for gender equity, and for a just and a safe world. But what happened is that there are these colonialists who grabbed religion, especially Christianity, and exported a version that is mostly empire and extractive. And so I want to speak that even if you read the Bible, they always say that righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. That's the foundation where God sits. Micah 7:8 says that, what have I called you, dear man, except to walk humbly before your God, love mercy and justice. these are the things, and you see the biggest transformation that have happened in the world, including Martin Luther King Jr. He was inspired by the faith. So then I'd like to call us that, for example, you know Caroline Nganga, who runs Msingi Trust. And Msingi Trust, basically, their work is to center liberation theology in the work that we do. Because many of us who are actually human rights activists are doing this because we are empaths and we love our community and we are driven by a higher ideal. So the captured people, the big religion, the conservative Pentecostals, the biggest industrial complex, we know the church, which runs 23% of this country, they do not represent the authentic gospel of Jesus Christ. And I dare say that. Let them come for me.
No, it's unfortunate. It's the truth.
You're right. You're very right. But
This
they
is Jacqueline
weaponized
Batenge.
it.
Yeah.
Jacqueline,
and I were in the same university, actually.
The twist of religion.
the twist of the religion, I think the one thing that people should understand is that women are one of the most valued commodity. Sadly, her body was cut into pieces at the Airbnb. We understand that that's a ritual. Her body was worth 600,000 Kenya shillings. Women are the highest commodity, even in the spiritual realm. I'm sorry about it, but that's true. So for the church, women are the biggest commodity. And the church is an industry that is selling hope.
Yeah.
You cannot sell hope to someone who's okay. They need to be distraught. They need to be down on their broken, so that you sell them a product that they do not have. Jesus. So the twist in religion here is that they're in the business of making sure that their biggest contributor, the woman who's tithing, praying, and washing the church every Sunday, is down on her luck so that I sell her hope one more time.
My God.
Because that is the same religion that pushes for women to stay in marriages that are weak. Instead of, if he's not doing right by you, if he's beating you, you have to leave.
Yeah.
But telling, oh, let them stay because God loves marriage and he hates a woman.
He hates divorce.
Is that what you're saying? God hates divorce and he hates women as well because he keeps them in bad marriages, then he doesn't like them. So the twist of religion here is once people learn that it is an industry that sells hope to the hopeless, the day the hopeless wake their head up, they'll have nothing to sell to them.
Yeah.
That's the reason why religion hasn't spoken about starlet, who hasn't spoken about why all these women, because they are not women, they're not people's children. They should have spoken. I'm shocked they didn't.
And also, the Bible is, you know, there's a verse I used to love. It says, when the righteous prosper, they are sounds of joy.
Yeah.
When the
Wicked rule,
what happens?
people groan.
People groan. Now, in Kenya right now, it's the opposite. When the righteous prosper, the righteous don't prosper. So why should we look and search for righteousness? Because when the wicked are ruling, it looks like the wicked prosper. And so unfortunately for us, we are listening to wickedness. Yeah. Because wickedness, for some reason,
Wickedness
is selling.
clothed as righteousness.
Yes, is selling. And fundamentally right now, we have a Christian president.
Yeah.
So when we are looking at religion, we're also looking at the kind of politics that they want to pray. And then this is, oh my God, let's not go there.
So I'm guessing we're saying
hole.
religion, or at least religion as it is made out to be, is not one of the duty bearers as a solution or a source of solution for the problem that we're seeing. The
They
femicide.
should,
They
but they're
are,
not.
yes,
Listen,
they should, but
They
they're
should,
not.
but
Because
they're
this country is captured, and I will call it capture. You know the way we are saying our nation has been captured by selling ourselves out there.
Yeah.
This nation is captured by church, as my learned friend over there said.
Church capture.
There's church capture in this nation. And because when you listen, these people, when you read the comments, they're like, but tell these women
That's what
that they need to stop being loose and greedy and selling themselves. That is not moral. Now, who is in the business of selling morality? Who is in the business of selling morality? The church. But who is in the business of not platforming morality? The same church. The church has a duty to its people. Actually, there was a time in this nation, I know I was in primary school probably, when leaders of the church would call out the president, and they would do it without fear. Where are our enjoyers? Where are the men of God, Akina Father Kaiser, that died for the cause of this nation? Where are those righteous men that used to speak without fear or favor? They're too fat in their Range Rovers and their Prados from milking their congregation, that their congregation
Their
is so
female
dry.
congregation.
Their female congregation, who is being killed. All right? These are the duty bearers that do not say a word about what is happening because they have no social or moral standing to speak a word.
But then, Dan, Mark, let me just say that 70% of all members of global cults are women, while over 80% of the global cult leaders are men. Churches, mostly the people who give and go, and especially in these charismatic churches, are women. But let me also say this, and I don't want to, it's not a what about, I just want to give a different perspective. I want to say that the people who actually, Father Dolan.
Yes.
Father Dolan is a fantastic
Gabriel Dolan.
Yeah, Gabriel Dolan. He's doing amazing work in Mombasa. As we speak right now, there's the canon from All Saints Cathedral, Wainaina, who's been fantastic and calling out this BS. I know of a certain church in Karen called Renewal Church. Every Friday they are out in these streets, something they call Rejesha, where they are doing outreach to sex workers. And they bring them and they do a whole 360-degree from psychosocial support to stuff. But I also know that they run something called AJA. AJA is their work, their social justice arm, where they actually fundraise and get men. 90% of their clients are men who've been wrongfully accused and are serving remand as prison time for false accusation.
There's a church like that?
Yes, it's
In this
Renewal Church
country?
in Karen, yes. That's the church I go to. So I want to say that I was also tired of all this, because you go and you find all they talk about is empire and occupation. But the practical washing of the feet, the practical outreach is not there. And so when I heard that church, I said, oh my goodness. And so that happens.
Yes.
But then last but not least, Dan, I don't know whether I'll be
Baptize
jumping.
me, Pastor. It's Mark.
I was like, who's done?
I said I was talking to Aseda a lot there, so before this happened.
Good.
So I want to speak to the need of, from my end, what we need to do moving from here.
Yes.
One is that there are countries in Latin America that have already passed legislation in their criminal, penal codes that address femicide as a standing law.
Yes.
So the work that we must all do as allies and collaborators is to, first of all, make sure that we have a category that would actually define this femicide a bit more better, so that even the police, who are actually the first people who collect evidence and first responders, are able to understand, so that they don't just say it's a homicide. Another thing we need to do, we need to do a bit more of education. So beyond, so even as when we're done, so when we're protesting, we've got to engage the Editors Guild, we've got to engage the duty bearers, Parliament, and different bodies. I've done such kind of work in the mental health space, where we have actually pushed for survivor-centered policies in that space. So we can do that. That work will not be done by Njeri and by them alone. It will be done by you and I and everybody else. Because the scourge of femicide is it's on the fabric of our nation. It's not on the fabric of women. It's on the fabric of our nation. And so I think that is very, very important. Then last but not least, I think as individuals, it's upon our responsibility, because gender norms are so huge. They're like the sky, because it is there and it stayed for long. We begin by breaking them piece by piece on our platforms, how we talk about these things in our homes, and when we collaborate with people who are breaking these gender norms. I believe that that is important.
There is the move by there's government agencies reacting to what has happened, and the private security regulatory authority talking about stricter or stiffer rules governing Airbnbs and what have you. So in speaking to what the government should be taking up as a duty bearer, what's your view?
Of course, the government has a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
One, at the police station. Let's just start there. I'm glad that now prosecution is done under the office of the DPP versus just the police. But now we need to go a little bit further on being keen on crimes against humanity, killings and things like that. When you hear a perpetrator, like the first story that rocked the nation in 2024 of Ms. Wahoo, that this is a man who had been charged way before. And it's still, you're like, there's a problem in the police and prosecution. Because you cannot be working with criminals. They'll do it again. So saying stricter rules on Airbnb, the issue is not the Airbnb, it's the humans. The Airbnbs have nothing to do with it. Crime does not occur in just one place. It occurs in the mind of someone. If he decides he's going to do something wrong, it's in his head. It could be an Airbnb today, tomorrow it's going to be a hotel, another day it will be in the office. It's going to be somewhere. So the issue is the people, not the location. That's never it. So I think the duty is of the government, more than anything. The duty is of the government so much in that they are not keen to see some of these things. We go online and we see some of these men giving comments on how they would do this to women.
And get away with it.
And I know there are departments that look through things like that. Facebook invested in Kenya, came to Kenya. There's a way we can sieve out some of these comments and highlight some of these people. There is surveillance that is done by DCI, NIS. They can do much more. I feel like the government is really edged and focused on how to run its money minting business versus making sure the people who are giving them this money are safe. We deserve. The government has something called a social contract with us that they're supposed to serve us. And I'm usually so keen on that. And I get so angry when I see governments not serving us at this point. Because why is the police not aware that Matara has been doing this? Why is the police allowing charges to just be written shoddily? When we talk about the case of Mary Wambui, the fact that 2 perpetrators went to court and left, that is bizarre. So it means the government is sleeping, and that's why the judiciary is not working as it should, because the judiciary should run fast with these cases. Those are, the way we say we have fast-moving goods, these are fast-moving cases. They should be fast-moving cases. Cases about human rights should be the first ones to be dealt with. That the perpetrators face the law and face their punishment as they should. I feel like a lot of it levies on the government because I give them votes, you know, so they might as well do their job. But even also, I think we have another duty as a society. We are the grown-ups in this conversation. We need to watch what our children are looking at, and our young men especially, of course our young girls. Because if we grow an angry man, we grow an angry father, an angry grandfather, it continues to ripple. And I need that angry man to stop. There's nothing amazing about someone angry. So the voices that we're letting these boys listen to is so scary. And it needs to stop. I need the good men to start speaking now. That is the people who have the duty. We have the duty of men to start speaking in better voices. Stop listening to angry voices. Stop it. That's the only thing that will help. That's the duty. Another duty, of course, is to ourselves as women. We will not be silent. We will never stop. And I'm so glad that we're growing up with Gen Alpha and Gen Z who are really woke and aware and are always going to push. I think some of the biggest numbers we'll have on the 27th are going to be women. And I think if we really want our country to change and our people to change, we really need to look at things in a deeper manner. What we are reading on the internet, what we're consuming as people, if we continue to consume triggering news all the time and headlines like that, we'll be a very triggered people. Mental health issues will be on the rise. We'll have more mental health hospitals and the medicine to follow. So there's duty, government, ourselves, and a lot of it on men.
And someone here speaks about what you've just spoken about. Thanks, Kate. Willis Raburu says, leaders need to be held to a higher standard, and we need to talk about the consumption, especially how the media crafts the stories and how they are consumed. It's not why I'm asking you this, but you talked about the personal, duty bearers being personal, the personal responsibility for someone who has a gadget like this and the news and the images that they spread. For you, and you've also spoken about sex education and where this should be done, and it's not happening in churches, it should be happening at home more. For you, as a parent, as a content creator, where the duty bearer weight should be?
I'll definitely just speak to the people, like to the society itself, because that's what the internet is. If people are getting, if the media has become sensationalist,
okay.
Pushed to my way through that. If that's how they become, it's because there's market for that. First of all, I've been, now that you've mentioned it, but I've been, back and forth with blogs about even posting my own children. I don't think it's right. And we all know that they do all these things. The media does sensationalist pieces because of the clicks, the engagement. That's what drives viewership up, numbers up, everything up. I feel like when it comes to talking about children or talking about such cases, switch off the comments. Let it not be about the engagement.
Right.
Do something, remove something. Let people see, do better in your headlines, of course, give the trainings that Danish has talked about, educate the people in the newsroom to do better.
Right.
Let's stop being driven by clicks and numbers. It's a very short high. I don't even know. I think that's why it's addictive. That's why we say being on the phone it's a very small thing, but it keeps you there.
Yeah.
You don't live in the real world because this is where you get all your stimulation.
Yeah.
That's not right from the ones clicking, consuming the content, and from the ones posting the content. Secondly, I know you speak about all the trauma that men are going through. As Njeri has said, it's not men. We were all colonized.
Yes.
Our ancestors all went through this. Trauma is not your fault, but healing is your responsibility. Men, I don't know how you'll take this, but just grow up. Grow up. It takes work. It takes work to go to the mirror and realize that I view women a certain way. That's why when this lady at work tells me how to do something, I get angry. Because I don't like when women talk to me like that. Why? Ask yourself why. Once you get your why, undo that, unlearn. Growing up is unlearning, relearning, and staying teachable. Please. We are not speaking because we know everything. We are speaking because we have taught, we have researched. We've experienced, exactly. For me, this is my first time doing something like this. I was very scared.
Hey.
I was.
You did a good job.
I was about to ask for a microphone for you to drop it because you've just dropped it.
Thank you so
well
much,
done.
and thank you for the support. Because I know I surprised you when I told you I know you, but it's because of women like you, that I know I have a responsibility to now speak up for my children. You understand? We can't act like it's not our problem anymore.
Yeah.
We're the adults. They like to say millennials ignore their adults' duties. They're like, nah. We were traumatized, I guess, by our parents. So they're like, no, we can choose. We can opt out. We cannot. We cannot anymore. We are the adults. We need to do better. And to do better, you need to just grow up, take accountability for your mistakes, learn how to be better, and actually do some work to do better. And finally, I like to say for the not all men battalion, good men battalion, we need you. I don't know which camera to look at. We need you. On Saturday, during the protest, don't look at this as any issue ya wamama, ni issue ya kila mtu. We are trying to tell you that this thing doesn't happen to just sex workers, to people in Airbnbs. Mothers have been killed, daughters, sisters. We shouldn't think that way because they are people. People are dying. That's why you should come and support us. Anyone else who doesn't know what to do in this regard, please use your platform.
Yeah.
However small you think, talk to people at the office, in the chamas. I know people are getting triggered. People are seeing the quote-unquote real side of people who they thought they're their friends. It's actually very scary, Mark, to have this conversation and realize that a man you thought you're safe around
Is not.
is not a safe space. But don't let that deter you. We would rather know than not know. So please spread awareness, talk about this. For the media, do better. I know the news outlets have been writing more of these stories because clearly there's outrage.
Yes.
Honestly, shame on you, but also thank you because it's because of that we're here speaking about this, and it's because of that we will march on 27th. But please support in any way that you can and educate yourself and others around you.
Right.
There are good men, please, good men. Teach young men to be good men.
Right. And there's something my producer is speaking to my ear, and I'll give you the last word to speak about the 27th, because she's mentioned it, but maybe people don't know what it is. As a last word, I'll give it to you. My producer says something else, the duty bearer, the government needs to operationalize the Coroner's Act. And I'm just looking at it just to get the context of it. And the National Coroner's Service Act and Police Accountability in Kenya, Article 26 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, provides that everyone has a right to life and prohibits the arbitrary deprivation of the right. And you can read more into that. That's another episode, Mr. Producer. Put the panel together, we'll talk about it. But yes, thank you for that note. And yes, 27th?
Mark, let me say something about the coroners.
Yes.
So for example, when we're doing the suicide prevention strategy, one of the discussions, the people we engaged
Yes.
are the coroners, people who handle, dead bodies. And so if there's a framework that is able to involve other expertise that can determine the sort of death
Yes.
that this person died. Like, for example, in this country, we only say somebody has died by suicide whenever we find the rope or their method of dying. That's the only way. But we can't, the rest we're just saying it's a homicide. But somebody might die by suicide through many other ways, like drowning or by driving their vehicle behind a lorry and they die. So the work of a coroner would be to help us know that this is a femicide, this is a homicide, and therefore that will help us to put resources in prevention, but also in dealing with it, but also have a data. Because even right now, if you see what General Nam has done, there's no national statistics around femicide. We just have women who have died, but we're not saying that, okay, of these deaths, these numbers are these numbers, because then without that, we can't put resources.
Thank you for putting more meat to that. And to speak about, and that study by John Alanam put together by Africa Uncensored, and you can find it on the website. I'll just read about it when I wrap up and say goodnight. We've talked about the duty bearers. There's a church, there's a government, personal, family, Coroner's Act, the legislature, and what we can do. But there is something you are doing.
Yes.
You're taking it, as you probably don't have time to wait for the others, the duty bearers. You're doing something on Saturday. What's going on? Where will it be? How can people join in?
I was not allowed to say anything about duty bearers, and I will say it anyway.
Say it. Speak.
And then I will come and
We
wrap
spoke
it
about
up
it a
with
bit
the
with
match.
the church, yeah.
No, me, I don't, in fact, mine is like a sentence.
Yes.
We need the good men to drown out the voices of that are spewing negativity to the other men. So I need one media to platform the good men. A lot more. We need men like him in conversations. I'm so glad I've met you. I was losing hope in men. I mean, I need to see those voices drowning out. That is my call. I need to see when people come and attack me in my comments. I need good men to come and say, this is not how we do this, all right? I need to see much more men doing a lot more, all right? Not men going their own way. I need men to come back, be positive, be responsible, and hold each other accountable. Yeah. Yes, I am so glad to tell you people that on the 27th of this month, Usikimie, Feminists in Kenya, Zumara, and many other CSOs are coming together to hold a march, country-wide. Nairobi, the march starts from Jivanjee Gardens. Let's meet there at 10 a.m. We march for our rights, we march for our freedom. We speak in one voice in unison that stop killing women. We have it in Nyeri, we have it in Eldoret, we have it in Kisumu. Please follow our socials. And you will see, we are talking about it and we are being relentless. We want people to know this is not the time to be silent. We've been silent for far too long. Unfortunately, in 2019, we held the same march.
Yes, we did.
I just want you to know that in 2019, the femicide cases had gone up so high.
Yep.
We did a march. We gave our petitions and we spoke about it. Nothing happened. Look at what silence does. It breeds the same cycle again. Now we are back here in 2024 asking for the same prayers to be granted. And so we ask, and this time now we have people like even John Alanam investing into putting down the statistics, breaking them down so that it becomes irrefutable. So I need all of us, if you're a woman, if you're a man, this is not a march just for women. And I need us to not say men should have sympathy because these are yours. You have a sister, a mother. No.
People.
No. You have a wife, you have a... No. A woman has every right to life in as much as you have. And the fact that He said the easiest body to dispose of is of men, but the easiest person to kill is a woman. And to get away with it, it's a woman. Because most of these cases, even as you go reading down what John Alanamu has said, is that most of these cases, no justice has been found. And unfortunately, the worst part about Kenya is neither the femicide, neither the homicide, neither the infanticide, none of these cases ever get justice. So we need to come to a place where the government has to agree that they owe us a duty to solve cases.
Citizens.
The police owe us a duty to be diligent about their investigations into these femicide cases.
Yeah.
So we cannot be sitting here when Starlet whose whole case was on media. You know? How did that even leak? How did that happen? That is failure. Systemic failure and systemic oppression are all intersections that are leading us into this conversation. So 27th, if you're in Nairobi, Jivanji Gardens, see you there. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Right, and you've mentioned that platform where John Alanamu, Odipo, Dev, African Data Hub, African Censored Partnership. It's femicide.africauncensored.online. You can get all the facts there on this femicide issue in Kenya. And you've heard what's happening on Saturday, the 27th, and you can follow Usikimye, which on their socials for more details. And she says it's open to women, open to men, kujeni nyote, and stand to break this silent conversation on femicide, which has almost gone to 2 hours, and it is because there's a lot to talk about here, and there's still more to say about this. And thank you so much, Jerry, Migwi, thank you, Danish, thank you, Ivy. First time, and again, thank you for honoring our panel. First time, thank you, Kate. And this is a conversation that we'll continue. We'll have it, of course, repurposed online, and we'll definitely follow the activities of Saturday and report on that. Have a good night and stay safe. I'm Mark Masai.